Hello, everyone. This is Chala Dinkoy, CEO and founder of The Repositioning Expert, coming to you live with another Tuesday Tea Time with Chala. Got my funky little glass, and I just noticed that shade is down. Okay, I've been working that way all day. All right, so how about a nice little title to get you started with after a week off visiting my parents and my sister in Ottawa last week? Is your corporate client loyal or just too busy to replace you? I wanted to wake you up in the middle of summer. You're probably lying on a beach somewhere or go off with your kids, but maybe you have some time to think about whether your corporate client is actually kind of too busy or is not telling you the truth about whether they're dissatisfied or not, because 81% of B2B buyers, and this was a global study done across the world where they asked B2B buyers about how they felt about the vendor. Almost 81%, like almost all of them, said they were dissatisfied even after going through a whole process of the buying process. And here's how you can tell whether that's happening or is going to happen to you and how to prevent it. So the number one mistake is because vendors think that once a deal is done, this client is in the bag. Now, this can be right after the purchase, or it could be that they can be long-term clients, but it's a huge deal. So even when during the buying process, 86% of B2B purchases don't even go to the end stage. They don't even close. So never ever through the process or even after you have them think that they're in the bag. Now, how do you prevent, like, this is all the loyalty and how do you keep them on board and on track, is like you've got to keep abreast of their changing priorities. And how do you do that? Well, you have to have actually built-in milestones of talking to them regularly, feedback looping back and forth with them built into the contract when you start working together. So you have to ask what priorities are changing as each milestone goes by, or it could be year, it could be bi-yearly, whatever it is. And then up front, you have to talk about and document what are the expectations, what are the risks, who's responsible for what. You have to clarify everything. What are the next steps? Who's accountable? Who are the parties that are involved? And then really you have to address the gaps before they become a dissatisfaction, so that before the client is actually pointing it out and asking you about it, you have to be almost 3 steps ahead of them. I know it sounds exhausting, doesn't it? But you have to do it because that's what corporate clients need. And then, of course, once you're inside, never, never, never let go of the scheduled reviews and interviews of the multiple stakeholders, because what happens when one of the person who brought you in is gone? That happens so much, especially now. People are mobile. So, and there's a buying committee of 7 to 12. So you have to get to know all the stakeholders and try to talk to them about what are the changing priorities. And then what is it about you that they like, hate, indifferent to? What is the good, bad, and ugly? And have these conversations built into the contract so that they understand that you care about their feedback. It is not a waste of time. This is potentially, it can change the whole color of how they view you, what the service level feels like to them, and so on. Number 2 mistake of why, companies are unaware of whether the corporate client is loyal or just too busy to replace them is they're not attuned to the changing needs, which we kind of referred to in the first one. So here's another research. Accenture said that 80% of B2B buyers changed vendors at least every 2 years, so 24 months. You know that they are going to change you if you are not doing some of these things that we're talking about. And the reason why they cited why they changed every 2 years is because of the dissatisfaction and misalignment with their existing and changing needs. So if you're not in tune, they're gone. So how do you stay in tune? What to do to prevent it? So first of all, work off of SMART objectives. I'm going to take a sip because this tea is so good. When I start working with a client, even though they're not giant corporations, they're clients, they're trying to sell to giant corporations. But even with them, the smaller corporations that I work with, we work off of SMART objectives. I ask them, what is the evidence of success that you need to see? And I quantify it with them. And so you working with a much larger corporation need to have a score sheet of their expectations and numerics. SMART is the, measurable, specific, what was it? SM, measurable, specific, measurable. I can't remember the other ones. ART, results oriented, timely. What was the A? Achievable, attainable. Wow, it's amazing how my 30-year-old university brain can still remember that. So revisit these SMART objectives when there's a market change, a business change. I do that with clients all the time when something's changed, or even when we haven't spoken for a while. And then include your report on their business growth. So the reason why people are in business is to make money. If you can tailor your reports to how much they're making money, and then could even potentially showcase how you're helping them do that, and you do that on a regular basis, you have your eyes on the prize of what they're actually trying to do, which is grow. So it makes you look like a strategic partner rather than just a vendor who's just doing the work. You put yourself at a seat at the table with the big boys where they're talking macro instead of micro. Number 3 mistake of why you end up with corporate clients who are, you don't know if they're just loyal or they're just too busy to replace you, is missing their dissing, is what I like to call it. So assuming the client issues versus asking them directly. Now, at the beginning of my work together with clients, they do this all the time. They're trying to guess at their industry issues. They're trying to guess at their client issues because they don't want to have to go through the work of actually going ahead and setting meetings to interview them and to have formatted sit downs with them and reviews. Because confrontation is scary. Maybe they don't want to ask, are you happy with me? It's almost like, asking somebody you're in a relationship with, do you love me? What are they supposed to say, right? No, if you build it into a structure of a review, then they have to tell you so that you're not missing their dissing, as I like to call it. So corporate visions research says that buyers and sellers gave different reasons for ending their engagement together. And 70% of the time they were on different pages. So the seller said one thing and the buyer said one reason for why the contract ended. So they were clueless about what each other was thinking. And also 53% of buyers said they would continue if sellers just changed something about the way they were doing something. But because there's no consistent way of common feedback of figuring out, keeping them in the loop, and you haven't set this as part of your business practice, you're not in tune with their changing needs and you're not aligned with what their new vision is. And so 70% of the time when the contracts end, they cite different reasons. The sellers and the buyers cite different reasons. So what do you do about that? Well, interview the whole industry, not just your clients. Figure out what are the industry pain points. What are they struggling with? Because most likely your client, if they're not yet struggling with it, they might or will be struggling with it. So not only do you get to find out what's gonna change or what has changed, but you can even bring them that kind of industry news, feedback, and intelligence. Ask for regular, what would make us better conversations, similar to what I was asking you to do in the previous point, where tell me about the good, bad, and the ugly of working with us. And then ask for a win-loss interview after bids if they will grant it to you. Depends on the relationship that you've been able to garner. And then, if you ask for why did we lose, it would really help if you would tell us. I do that, and sometimes I get crickets because confrontation is not comfortable for people. They don't want to tell you something. But in other cases, people have told me exactly what it was, and it really helped me. And then track recurring complaints with clients or with prospects. If you're hearing the same thing from more than one person, it's usually a trend, and it's probably something you need to look at and to change. Number 4, and actually this is a really good one of why corporate clients are loyal versus they're just too busy to replace you, is that are you easy? Are you easy to work with? So 88% of B2B buyers want more flexibility and responsiveness from during the purchasing, even just during the purchasing. And then afterwards, even more. 91% are more likely to buy, while 79% will pay more for an easy vendor. Are you getting them the quotes on time? Are you responding back to a question they ask? Are you able to set meetings quickly and get things accomplished? What is it that you need to do? You need to set clear response time sequences and standards. And so for example, I just hired a new private doctor for my parents, and they have a guaranteed 24-hour or same day doctor's appointment. Very clear. And their competitor didn't. I mean, it was implied, but this was like very clear, set out right from the start. Give client one accountable contact. That's always a good thing to do, and make them have a backup if that person isn't available. And then make a timeline, pricing, deliverable, responsible, all of that easy to understand. Remember, clarity. They like people who are easy to work with, and keep the information that you're giving them consistent, where when they look online, what you're saying in your decks, in person, in presentations, on LinkedIn, make it all consistent. Otherwise they get scared and confused. And then of course, proactive updates before the buyer asks, where are we at now? When are we meeting again? What are the next steps? Who are we waiting for? That is the buying process that you need to make sure that you've got them in securely, so that your corporate client comes in without having that buyer's remorse and then wanting to change you within the 2 years, or just being too busy to replace you. So now lastly, how do you know whether your client is loyal or just too busy to replace you? Is do not wait for the RFP to do all this. Even if you don't have the client, you should not wait for an RFP to get close to them, to get visibility with them, to find out what their pain points are, to find out what their incumbent, the current person who's doing the job, is not delivering. It is the number one way that you can find out how to build those missing elements into your RFP when the RFP time comes up. And also remember, when there's RFPs are issued, you're not really allowed to talk to them. So the best time to talk to them is without waiting for that, the RFP. You have to talk to them in between those cycles. So late summer Q4 is usually a really good time when organizations are reviewing priorities. They're preparing budgets for the next year. So these are really good times to actually talk to corporations about their upcoming priorities or changing priorities. And they also evaluate suppliers for the next year during that time. So get in before the contract ends. Some contracts are multiple years, so you have to wait, but hopefully you'll have more than just one that you're pursuing. So I hope this was a good summer reminder for whether your corporate clients are loyal or they're just too busy to replace you. And if you're doing all of these things, you will never be replaced. You will always be defended and protected and passed on to the next generation of buyers or whoever else is signing the check, because they are so happy and satisfied and feel like you get their problems and you're constantly in sync and aligned with all the changes in the market. In fact, you lead them through the changes in the market. So you're not just a order taker, but you're a strategic partner that is sitting at the same macro level of thinking that the managers are and the leaders of this corporation are. And that's when you become you have loyalty instead of somebody just being too busy or lazy to replace you. And that's what I want for all of you. All right, everyone, have a good one. I'll see you next Tuesday.